Hello and welcome to No Drop. On this episode, I want to cover some friends of mine and myself did a sub 5 hour Rose Bowl century. And for anybody who doesn't know what the Rose Bowl is, it's like a 3.5-ish, 3.2 mile loop.
Yeah, so 5K loop, 3.2 miles.
Yeah, right around. It's in Pasadena, California. There's the big football stadium there that has the Rose Bowl game, and there's a golf course. So there's just this circle with no stop signs. And I've always found it to be the fastest place to do a century. Mm-hmm. Not as flat as you might think. We got 4,000 feet of elevation.
Yeah, 4,000.
I think we kind of blew ourselves away in what we were able to accomplish in this. So before we get into it, let me introduce, I have Connor Hughes, commonly known as SpongeBob in the LA cycling community. Hello, Connor.
Hey, guys. What's up, Jeff? Thanks for having me.
And I have Derrek. I don't even know how to say your last name.
Which part is the key?
Sevcik?
That's correct.
Derrek Sevcik, everybody. We got together with the goal of doing a sub 5 hour moving time century. Derrek, this was your first sub 5 hour?
Yes.
And Connor and I have done one or two.
We did one that was, by the numbers, I think it might have been even 30 seconds longer. Like, it might have been 5 hours and 30 seconds of moving time.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this was our first.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. We blew away my expectations of what we'd be capable of because the metrics were, we did 100 miles in 4 hours and 43 minutes. And we also, our total time was 4 hours and 58 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So we
56.
Yeah, 4 hours, 56 minutes.
Yep, total time.
And were you guys expecting that we would do sub 5 total?
No, I expected with stops and stuff, I expected to be maybe closer to like 5:15 total time, maybe 5:20. Like I was like anywhere, like as long as we do like a 5 hour moving time, that sounds great. And
Same.
So go off of that, figure 2 to 3 stops. If you take five minutes a stop, you're looking at 15 minutes, maybe of stop time. So yeah, I didn't expect to be sub 5 total time. That was really cool to see.
It's incredible. And for Derrek, for it to be your first attempt and to hit sub 5 on every metric.
Yeah, so I actually just double checked my Strava history, and I did the Twin Lights ride last year, which is 100 miles and about 4,000 feet of climbing.
Okay.
And that was a 5:15 moving time
with
a 5 hour roll time. So,
okay.
So kind of this was like my second attempt actually. But the stops on that ride were much longer because it was an event and organized and I was riding with friends. Mm-hmm. Versus here we were more like structured in our time.
Definitely.
So I think that's what led to like us achieving a lot of the time frame goals that we set out to accomplish.
Yeah. I mean, we were very disciplined in how we rode. And one of the things that, I wrote down when I was trying to reflect back on like what went right and what did we do well in this. I mean, the amount of organization and discipline that we rode with was the very first thing that I thought of. That was pretty incredible. Were there anything that either of you guys thought we did like particularly well?
I think I agree. I think like just the organization of it, of organizing our efforts with amongst each other and trading off on our polls and stuff like that. And just even the night before when we were figuring out the strategy of like, okay, how long are our polls going to be? Are we going to do like a quarter of a lap? Are we going to do like a full lap? And then we figured out where if it's an odd number of people, then we can do an equal amount of polls. And that way, every time we rotate around, you're pulling a different side of the rows of the loop. So I think that I just think our execution, our strategy going into it was really good, and our execution of it was like perfect in pacing and stuff like that. We weren't surging, we weren't going too hard. We we started out slow, air quotes, slow in the first lap. Then the next lap we got faster. Next lap we got faster, and then by our fourth lap we were like in the zone, and we just kind of clicked out these like 8 to 9 minute laps with like 10 to like the most variation was like a minute, but it was every lap was like kind of within like 10 to 20 seconds of the previous lap.
So dialed.
And to do that for 5 hours is incredible.
Yeah.
So I thought we did that very well. Just
incredibly consistent.
Yeah, I thought we communicated really well with like open check-ins the whole time. Whether it was like on polls or just riding or when we were stopped, like I can remember countless times like, we think we're going a little bit too hard on a poll, so like let's back it off. Or just checking in on how we're feeling with like getting more food, getting more water, and like being aligned that we are all gonna like, okay, it's coming up, we're gonna be structured and refueling, and then get back into the zone and try to hit those times that we set out to achieve.
Yeah, that communication really played a huge part, I think, in probably being as successful as we were, because it's so easy to get caught up in the energy of the moment and sort of the adrenaline. And, we needed to do like 8.5 minute loops.
As long as every lap was under 9 minutes, we were going to do the 20 mile an hour average.
Yeah.
But we started out with a 10-minute lap. So already off of the first lap, it was like, okay, so we need like, 10 laps with 10 seconds
and now we have
under
8:40s.
9 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So after we did that first lap, we're kind of getting warmed up. I mean, always great to have a warm up. And then I think, Connor, you communicated, okay, well now we got to like, that's what that was. And that's what that feels like. Cause I ride without power. So I need like feedback on like what kind of pace are we actually going at. I ride without all data. I have no speed metrics. I'm useless on these rides.
Well, yeah.
So
for those who haven't seen Jeff's bike, his Garmin is mounted upside down under his top tube, so it's physically can't be seen while he's riding his bike.
So after that first warm up lap, Connor says, "Okay, well we have to pick it up a little bit." And then I think we sort of experimented, and like you said, within the third or fourth lap, we're communicating that this is exactly where we need to be. And at that point, I mean, for me, I just locked in on the feeling of that. And I knew what it was like to, rest, be behind. And then once I got in front, you're obviously working the most when you're in the front. And then just doing that over and over again. And to clarify one thing that Connor mentioned when he said an even number of rotations, when we were going around the Rose Bowl, we switched out 4 times. So if you were the first person to pull going up that hill, then the next time you would not be the person pulling to go up the hill. So it was sort of like one rotation, you'd be doing the most work, and then you would get the most rest on the next rotation. And then it would be a medium effort on the third one, and then or the second one, and then the third one, you were back in the front. So I felt like that was a great way to sort of like mix up the laps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I found that helped to keep it like mentally more engaging, because anybody who's done multiple laps around anything before, when you're talking like anything under 10 minutes, like even if you got something that's a 20-minute lap and you're going to go out and do a bunch of those, like it's not like every lap you're like, I can't wait to do another lap. You kind of got to make it interesting in a way that keeps you engaged.
Well, interesting, but you can't just like improv it either. So it's got to be interesting, but it's also got to provide structure, right? So I don't know if you were trying to have a goal like this, for people who are interested in doing, fast centuries, to be unstructured would probably be a big disadvantage, I would think.
I think it would be much more challenging. Especially from like a mental side of you, even if you have a plan to like execute when to refuel and like how hard to go, I think just like getting through that for your first time being sub 5 hours, you might get like too excited early on, or it might be too late when you get excited, and you don't have a good understanding of like the effort and the pace it would take to achieve that goal.
Yeah, it was far more like executing it physically was far more reasonable than I thought. A lot of it was being able to live in that zone, that high zone 2, low zone 3, and working together and having that sort of like discipline. So yeah, that structure, I think that structure was really, really valuable to like hit that goal. And I would think for everybody wanting to ride like that, to think about it ahead of time and like decide how you're going to ride.
Yeah.
Adapt along the way, but sort of have a loose plan of how you want it to go would be a huge advantage.
Yeah, to like your point, how we structured the segments and the pulls, like for me mentally, I knew like, okay, this part I can really recover, or this part it's like medium effort, and this part is the kicker, so make sure you're like dialed in for the speed. So you could like mentally engage in like how much you were tuned in or tuned off, I'll say, to like the pace that we needed to keep.
Yeah.
And there was also, if like how we broke up the polls generally, there I felt like if you got as every third poll you have like, you do one section, and then you repeat. And there's one of those sections that we would pull that was like, okay, that's the easy section. And when you're coming up and you're like, okay, my next poll is going to be the easy section, it can be like, at least for me mentally, I can be like, okay, cool. Like I'm already in the back recovering. When I do go back to work in a minute or two, it's going to be the easiest one of it. So I get to kind of still like rest a little bit more than if you're pulling the full uphill side.
Yeah.
And then other times where it's like, oh great, I get to like be on the front and push the downhill side and have that sensation of going fast and being in the wind. And so it was just a good like way to break it up.
Totally.
Yeah.
And one thing I noticed about the rotation that we had is I sort of fell into a pattern. And that pattern was, if I'm at the front, I'm doing work and I'm only focusing on riding. If I'm in the middle, I'm sort of getting myself ready, but I'm still very focused on the riding. And when I'm in the back, that's when I did all of my nutrition, all of my hydration. I would even like stretch at certain times if I was in the back. But one thing I noticed was I felt like that was the only sort of safe place to take care of those like extra things on the bike. Did you guys feel the same way or notice the same thing about your riding?
Yeah, actually 100%. The back was for recovery. You could like mentally know what you needed to do. Like each time I was remembering, okay, just like drink a little, like even if you're not thirsty, just because it was hot, or like eating, or just giving yourself like a reprieve or a stretch.
Yeah. And it seems like such a, as I was thinking about it, it was mostly out of like, this is the only place I have the extra energy to do it. But it also was kind of a safety thing. Like I didn't want to be in the front mashing and pushing watts and also trying to like eat a bunch of Scandinavian swimmers. That didn't feel like a safe place to put my buddies. So I found a lot of value in once you get to the back, and it's only going to be 5-6 minutes before you're at the back again. So every time I was there, eating, drinking, and then coming back, eating, drinking. And that's a great pace. I mean, if you can be hydrating and taking in calories every 5 minutes, just a little bit, I mean, that's pretty ideal. That's pretty perfect.
Yeah, it's like little like micro doses of carbs.
Yeah, microdosing, bro.
Just like, these little regular like you don't wait until you're hungry, you don't wait until you're thirsty. You're just like, okay, if every time I'm in the back I take 1 or 2 sips of my bottles, and like I'm like, you literally can get through the whole ride like that. Like
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't eat at all when we were stopped. We just replenished our pockets and then kept going. Although I guess I did have a few bites of a burrito when we were stopped. So I take that back.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it was just the stuff that we had packed on. and I had a terrible selection of goos, so I ordered a variety pack of goos a couple days before we did this ride, and they arrive and I open the box and I notice every single one of them has caffeine in it. And so I was jacked up on this ride, man. Like coffee before I showed up, caffeine goos on the ride, a Coca-Cola in the middle of it at the car. So caffeine works.
Yeah.
For sure.
Keeps you going.
Keeps you
For
going,
sure.
Literally. You know, do you think we could do it in less time?
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you think's reasonable? How many minutes could we shave off?
8 minutes.
8?
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
I was gonna challenge. It would depend on what your description of reasonable is, because I feel like we got to the end of the ride and like you rode home.
Yeah.
You rode home. Like
Yeah, I did
hopped in my car.
132 miles that day.
Like it was. We still had fuel left in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
If we strategized it and just were like, we're not gonna ride home after this. We're not gonna have the strength to do it. I mean, I think there's a big chunk of time to be cut from it. 30 minutes, potentially.
30 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
That's huge.
So if we
but there
did
would be
8
other factors involved besides just emptying 3 people and emptying.
Oh yes, correct.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're changing variables, like maybe more people.
I mean, I think with the 3 of us, if we had a support system, I'm talking like bottle handoffs, like we're probably like not stopping if we can manage that. And it's a weird thing to ride for that amount of time with like at that intensity without getting off.
For sure.
But yeah, I feel like somewhere around like 20 and 30 minutes is possible, depending on like how hard we wanted it.
So I was also thinking 8 minutes. That was the
That's
exact number.
so interesting.
That was the exact number I had in mind. And I think I broke it down, and it was the difference between, our total time was something like 9:07 laps or something like that.
Like
9 minutes, 7
average
seconds.
pace?
Yeah, average time, including our stopping, right? We're talking about total time here.
Okay.
And I think when I crunch the numbers, like 8 minutes off is like 8:40 something, including stops. So I feel like 8 minutes is very reasonable. Something we could definitely do. I mean, to get it a little bit closer to like 4:30 moving time, probably possible.
I think 4:30 is doable. Like with the 3 of us, I think with a lot of people, even more is possible. But
It's tempting.
Yeah, it's tempting.
Yeah. The tough part, I mean, the more people, the tough part just gets to be organization, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And having everybody who knows, like, okay, if I surge here, it might be okay now, but in 3.5 hours, it might blow you up. I always think back on this exercise, this cycling coach who coaches like track cyclists, where they have the 1 hour record for like distance covered or speed achieved, same kind of thing. And he talks about, how 1% change in power can be the difference between success and complete failure, not being able to complete your effort. So very thin margins there. So the amount of discipline with a group, with a bunch of people, that'd be so fun. Super fun. Were there any like special moments for you guys during the ride?
I just thought not so much a particular moment, but just like the kind of synchronicity, like we were in our flow states and like working together. I think that was just something like super special to get to experience something with like people who well, and we know like we spend a lot of time riding with each other and stuff like that, but we're usually riding in the mountains and like maybe some separation happens here and there, and like for 5 hours we were within 3 feet of each other's wheels for the entire time.
Maximum.
And I thought that was very cool.
Maximum. And if anybody is wondering out there, what did we do during this time? Like a lot of people are asking me like, oh, did you guys just like chat the whole time?
We didn't.
No, we did not. We were dialed in. We would check in on each other every once in a while, but You know, if you're just riding behind each other's wheels, there's not really a lot of time for socializing. So it was dialed in, maybe a little music here and there, but for the most part, it was just riding just in the ride, in that, as you said, in that flow state. What about you, Derrek? Any special moments?
That was actually, that was great what Connor said, but also I think just the moments that we were able to like mix it up, I think helped a lot too. So you're not just kind of losing your mind looking at like the same thing all the time. Like we switched up, for example, who was following what wheel like halfway through.
Oh yeah, that's
To
right.
give us like a little bit of a different perspective than, you know, like Brendan had joined us for a little bit. So we had a couple laps with him, which was great to like kind of mix it up as well. And then of course we're doing it around the Rose Bowl. So people see us like a freight train and they're trying to hop on. So we were also like, it was interesting because like we were like, okay, we're not letting them in between all of us. Like we're just going to scoot back in and stay
That's right.
structured and organized and disciplined. But it was still great to have that little bit of difference when we were riding because it made some of the laps go by mentally at least quicker, even though we were going the same pace.
Yeah, now that I'm remembering back, I started on your wheel, I think. And then after like 10 laps or something, we were like, okay, well now I'm going to get on Connor's wheel.
Yeah, it was your suggestion actually.
Just to mix it up. Yeah, I mean, we have very few ways to mix it up, to be that disciplined and that structured, but to also introduce like a little bit of variety is you don't have much to work with, you know? Throw on a New Jersey or something halfway through, like not a lot of ways to mix it up. And then the people who would jump on every once in a while, what we would tell them every time was just when we were rotating out, I would always look at them and say, I need to take that wheel. Like you can ride with us, that's fine. And some people rode with us for a long time. But I would tell them, you know, we have a thing going on and, you know, we also like don't know them. So we don't know if they're a good wheel to follow. So I'm cool with them being in the back, but I was not cool with them getting mixed up in the rotation necessarily. Yeah. So that was kind of a safety thing for me, a big safety thing.
Also a smart thing, like they were respectful, so it was great.
Everybody was super respectful.
And going back to your previous point, like that 1% can make a difference.
Huge.
So say there is some separation between us and they're in between, and then they go off. Like you now have to do a lot of work to get back on our wheel. So it avoided any outside, I'll say, temptations or challenges to face.
No triggers.
Yeah.
No triggers. Yeah, I think for me, I think just the whole experience. I mean, I love riding like that so much, structured with friends, with strong people that you're working together. Like that's always my favorite kind of riding, where you're really looking out for each other and you're working as a, you know, kind of one organism to achieve like a higher speed. That was just so, like 5 hours of that was just so fun. Like you said, we don't get to ride like that much. We always get separation somewhere, but that was really special. I felt like really just like in tune with both of you.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, we'll have to plan another one for sure. We'll see if we can find a happy place between me and Derrek's 8 minutes and Connor's 30-minute absolute just like slog of a ride. So maybe we can cut 12, 15 minutes off.
Yeah. I mean, 12 or 15 would still even be like, it'd be an impressive time cut. Would that get us? No, because the KOM is like 4:34 or something, right?
Something like that. I thought we were like 8 minutes off of it.
Well, that's why I said 8 minutes.
Yeah.
So 8 minutes would be the KOM.
Okay.
That's why I said 8 minutes, because I knew when we finished, one of the first things we did was like look at it.
Yeah.
And we were like 8 minutes off. So I was like, oh yeah, like we could easily make up 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Without too many changes in the way we approached it.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, to get some additional support, bottle handoffs and food and stuff like that, if we could have people like, 4 or 5 people showing up like once an hour with some supplies, that would make such a difference.
I just crunched the numbers, and so when we were doing it, the goal was 9-minute laps.
Yep.
Right, and as long as we did 9-minute laps and under average, then we'd get the 5 hours. If we did 8-minute laps, which is that's a fast lap.
Yeah, we're talking like 11%
But we
faster.
did 3
We did do 3
8-minute laps, 1 8-minute, 1 and 2 under 8, and that would be 4 hours and 25-ish minutes of moving time.
Wow.
So if we did that and still took the same amount of stops that we did, it would still be about 20 minutes
Okay.
faster. But that's one minute per lap. It's not. It's not nothing.
That's a big gain. So we're talking 11% faster just from a speed perspective, and then you convert that into wattage, and you're talking about even more watts, because the faster you go, the more watts it takes.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about like maybe a 15% increase in watts.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. Stay tuned, everybody.
Yeah. 15% increase, but if we add one more person in, we'd be getting a 33% increase in our capacity.
This is why this is so fun, because you start to balance out all these different factors, and then we get out there and actually see, like, how does that feel? Is it physically even possible? Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're planning.
Yeah. Oh, and so this was Jeff and I's 3rd Rose Bowl century that we've done together. And at this rate, we've done one every 2 years. But this was by far the fastest. We were 1 hour and 6 minutes, I think it was, faster than the previous time that we did it, total time.
Wow.
Granted, we stopped at that cafe on the golf course restaurant thing to get
fries were good.
Get some fries and Coke and stuff like that, and that takes a couple more minutes than how we did it this time. But I mean, that's crazy to shave that much time, to shave over 1 hour.
I know, almost like 20% off your total time.
Yeah. So what's another 20?
I love it. We'll keep raising the bar. Well, Connor, Derrek, I'm so glad that you guys were willing to do this. I really wanted to kind of talk about and just recap, what we did, what we accomplished, what we were successful with, because I think it is something that is fun for people to hear about. Like, how do you do this style of riding? So I think to just outline to people, like, you don't do it alone. You do it with people. You communicate really well. You go in with at least a loose plan and kind of set ourselves up for success. So I really appreciate that you guys were willing to share the experience.
Definitely, man. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Thanks you guys for being down to do it.
Oh, yeah.
So, such a cool thing to do. Yeah, and I think it is really interesting to, if you dig into our data, from the ride, we didn't go that hard, but we worked all together. And together you can do so much with a surprising amount of output. I think that's super cool.